They thought I was a broke old mother, until I paid their $800 dinner bill with my Centurion card. When you hide your power too well, some people mistake your silence for weakness. Tonight, I showed them exactly who I was. TPS, stay till the end. You won't forget this revenge. Subscribe for more true-to-life stories that hit deep. Part 1. My name's Evelyn Carter, and for 35 years my son Ryan believed his mother was a humble office clerk struggling to make ends meet. He never knew I was a regional operations director at a multinational company, earning $40,000 a month and managing teams across 5 countries. I never told him because I didn't want him to grow up spoiled. I wanted him to value effort, not money. I lived simply same 2-bedroom apartment, same faded leather purse, same car for 10 years. My coworkers called me Invisible Power, and that suited me fine. Then one Tuesday, Ryan called. His tone carried that nervous politeness I'd heard before when he'd broken something as a kid. "Mom, could you do me a favor? Julia's parents are visiting from London. They'd love to meet you. Dinner at Le Soleil, 7 p.m. Saturday. Le Soleil, one of those restaurants where the menu has no prices? I asked quietly, do they know anything about me? A pause. Then he stammered, I told them you're simple. You work in an office. You live alone. There it was, simple. Like it was a flaw. I agreed anyway. But that night, staring around my modest living room, something hardened inside me. If they were going to judge me, I'd give them exactly the woman they expected, a poor, timid mother. I wanted to see how they treated someone who had nothing. Saturday, I dressed in my worst clothes, a wrinkled gray dress, scuffed flats, no makeup, no jewelry. I tied my hair back, grabbed an old canvas tote, and hailed a taxi. When I arrived, warm lights spilled over marble floors. A doorman opened the glass doors as if guarding a vault. Inside, Ryan looked anxious in his dark suit. Julia, flawless as ever, wore a cream dress that screamed wealth. Her parents, Veronica and Charles Harrington, sat like royalty. Veronica's green sequined gown glittered with diamonds. Charles wore a silver-gray suit and a 30,000 watch that caught every beam of light. Their eyes met mine and dimmed with disappointment. Mrs. Harrington, Julia said too brightly, this is Ryan's mom, Evelyn. Veronica extended a hand cold as marble. A pleasure. I sat at the far end of the table. No one offered to help me with the chair. The waiter brought menus printed in French script. I struggled to read them until Veronica sighed and ordered for me. Something simple. We don't want to overdo it. Ryan stared at his napkin. Julia smiled nervously. Conversation began like a tennis match of luxury. The 1,000 a night hotel, the European vineyards they'd toured, the private jet they sometimes had to use. Every sentence ended with a glance my way, gauging admiration. How about you, Evelyn? Veronica asked sweetly. What do you do? I work in an office. Paperwork, filing simple things. Her lips curved. Administrative work. That's honest. All jobs are dignified, of course. Dinner arrived, tiny portions painted with sauce. Veronica cut her steak and announced its $80 price tag. Then came her pity disguised as grace. It must be difficult living alone on a limited income, she said. You're brave. I admire women who struggle alone. Naturally, we all wish we could give our children more. I smiled. Everyone gives what they can, she continued. When Ryan and Julia married, we helped them. $40,000 for the down payment, $15,000 for their honeymoon. We believe in supporting our children. And you, dear, were you able to contribute? Just a small gift, I said quietly. How sweet, she replied, savoring the condescension. Each word was another needle, but I stayed calm, because the more they spoke, the clearer their truth became. Then came the proposal. Evelyn, Veronica began, folding her napkin delicately, Charles and I want to help you. We could provide a small monthly allowance, say $700, to ease your expenses. In exchange, we'd ask that you give Ryan and Julia their space, not depend on them too much. Translation: here's hush money to disappear. Ryan's jaw tightened. Mom, you don't have to. I raised a hand gently. It's fine, son. Then, to Veronica, that's generous. May I ask how you arrived at 700? She blinked, surprised. We just thought it was reasonable. So, 700 a month for me to vanish. I wouldn't phrase it like that, but that's exactly what you meant, I said softly. You mentioned 40,000 for the house, 15 for the honeymoon. That's 55,000 spent to build your daughter's perfect life. Tell me, Veronica, has that money bought you anything real? Love? Respect? Silence. Forks froze midair. You've talked all evening about what things cost, I continued, but not once have you asked how I am. You've calculated my worth and decided I'm worth $700. That tells me more about you than any price tag. Her painted smile trembled. Charles shifted uncomfortably. You admire women who struggle alone? I asked. Tell me, have you ever? She opened her mouth, but I kept going. I raised Ryan by myself. No husband, no help. I worked 12-hour days and studied at night until I climbed from secretary to director. It took me 20 years. Now I earn $40,000 a month. The room went still. Ryan's eyes widened. Julia gasped. Charles's brow furrowed. Veronica froze. 40,000, I repeated, calm as stone, every month for nearly 2 decades. I oversee operations across 5 countries and sign contracts your lawyers could barely read. Mom, Ryan whispered, why didn't you ever tell me? Because I wanted you to grow into a man, not an heir. Julia's voice was barely a whisper. Then why live so modestly? Because I don't need to prove anything. Real power doesn't shout. I looked back at Veronica. That's why I came tonight like this, to see your true faces. And I saw them. Her jaw clenched. If you earned that much, we'd have known. Why would he think you were poor? Because I let him, I said. Because I invest instead of flaunt. Because I measure wealth in peace, not labels. Charles snapped. You misjudged us. Did I asked. You called me a burden. You offered to buy my absence. You mocked my clothes. Tell me where I misunderstood. No one answered. I stood, napkin in hand. You said money can't buy everything. You were right. It can't buy class. Veronica rose, face red. You lied to us. No, I said. I revealed you. I reached into my bag and dropped a black platinum credit card on the table. Dinner's on me. Call it a gift from the poor, naive mother you tried to humiliate. Her hand trembled as she read the engraving, Evelyn Carter, Regional Director. Her voice cracked. I don't need your charity. I didn't need your pity either, I replied. But you offered plenty. The waiter returned. I gestured toward the card. Charge everything. Add a generous tip. And with that, the mask was off for all of us. The waiter whisked away my card. Veronica stared at the space it had left, her diamond bracelet catching the light as her hand trembled. Charles cleared his throat, trying to salvage the wreckage of their pride. This is outrageous, he muttered. You've turned a family dinner into a spectacle. I looked at him calmly. No, Charles, I turned a performance into the truth. You spent all evening auditioning for superiority. I just ended the show. Ryan was pale, Julia speechless. The waiter returned with the receipt and my card resting atop it like a verdict. I signed, slid it back, and looked up. Done. $800. Including your edible gold cake. Charles's jaw twitched. Veronica's perfect posture finally wilted. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said, just freer. Veronica's voice sharpened. You came here pretending to be poor. That's deceitful. Yes, I agreed. And it exposed who you are. If I'd arrived in a designer suit, you'd have treated me like royalty. But because I looked ordinary, you thought I was beneath you. That's not on me. That's on you. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I turned to Julia. I wanted to see how your parents treated people without status. Now I know. Julia's eyes glistened. I didn't know they would. You knew, I interrupted gently. You just hoped they'd behave. It's human to hope, but now you've seen who they really are when the masks come off. The silence in that glittering restaurant was heavy enough to bend silverware. Veronica whispered bitterly, we only wanted stability for our daughter. By buying her husband's mother off, I asked, by calling me a burden? Tell me, how much stability does cruelty bring? Charles's voice rose an octave. Enough. This is disrespectful. I met his gaze evenly. You want respect? Start giving it. Then something unexpected happened. The waiter returned, flustered. Excuse me, sir, he said to Charles. Your card was declined. Charles blinked. That's impossible. Run it again. The waiter did, came back shaking his head. Declined again. Veronica's face turned crimson. Try another one. Charles handed over a gold card, his hand unsteady. The waiter left. I leaned back. These things happen, I murmured. Banks get nervous when too much money moves around. Or when karma's watching. Ryan hid a smirk behind his hand. Julia bit her lip to keep from smiling. The waiter returned once more. Sir, I'm afraid this one too declined. Charles's composure cracked. I'll call the bank, he barked, storming toward the lobby. Veronica sat frozen, her glamour dissolving into raw panic. This has never happened before, she muttered. I looked at her evenly. There's a first time for everything, Ryan whispered. Mom, we can just leave? No, I said. We finish what we start. I reached for my wallet again. Inside was a transparent metal Centurion card, sleek, heavy, silent proof of a life earned, not flaunted. I placed it gently on the table. The waiter's eyes widened. Ma'am, of course. He took it carefully as if holding something sacred. Within minutes he was back. All settled, Mrs. Carter. Thank you. Veronica stared at the card as though it burned her. That's a Centurion? She asked softly. Yes, I said. American Express. Invitation only. Minimum annual spending, $250,000. Not the kind of thing money alone can buy. Her lips parted, but no words came. Don't worry, I added. Dinner's paid. You can keep pretending your kindness was genuine. Veronica's voice broke. You humiliated us. No, I said. I held up a mirror. Julia was crying now. Ryan stood and helped me up. But before we could leave, Veronica tried one last jab. This doesn't end here, she said. We'll still be family. You'll have to see us again. I smiled. Yes, but now every time you see me, you'll remember this night. You'll remember who I am and who you were. Charles returned, pale and angry. Bank says it's a temporary block. Security issue. He looked at the table. Did you pay? Veronica's voice was low. She did. He hesitated. Thank you. You're welcome, I said sweetly. That's what family's for, right? A little allowance when someone's struggling. This dinner cost about $800. Consider it my donation to your stability. Charles clenched his fists, saying nothing. Veronica turned away, humiliated. Julia sobbed quietly. Ryan squeezed my hand. Let's go, Mom. We walked toward the door. Just before I left, I turned back. Oh, Veronica? She looked up. You said you speak 4 languages. Tell me, in which one did you learn to be kind? Her mouth opened, then closed again. Didn't think so, I said, and left. Outside, the cool night air hid my face like freedom. Ryan walked beside me, stunned. Mom, I had no idea. I know, I said. That's why tonight had to happen. He stared at the pavement. Why didn't you tell me? About your job, your money, all of it? Because you didn't need to know, you needed to fight your own battles. I wanted you to become a man who values integrity over income. He looked up. I do. But after tonight, I see the difference between dignity and arrogance. We stopped by the streetlight as a taxi pulled up. Mom, do you forgive them? He asked quietly. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, I said. It means I refuse to carry their ugliness in my heart. But I won't let them near my peace again. He nodded slowly. You're incredible. I smiled. I'm just experienced. As I got into the taxi, I turned to him one last time. Ryan, you saw two kinds of power tonight. Theirs and mine. Decide which one you'll build your life around. He swallowed hard. Yours. Good, I said, because theirs crumbles the moment the lights go out. The taxi rolled away, leaving that glittering restaurant and the shallow people inside shrinking in the distance. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, glanced at me through the mirror. Rough night? I smiled faintly. Transformative, he chuckled. Those are the best kind. You look like someone who finally said what needed saying. I stared out the window at the neon glow. You're not wrong, he nodded knowingly. Truth hurts, but it heals. I let out a slow breath. Exactly. He drove in silence for a while before asking, You rich? I turned toward him, amused. Why do you ask? He grinned. You've got the calm of someone who doesn't owe anyone anything. I laughed quietly. Maybe that's what wealth really is. When he dropped me off at my modest apartment building, he said, You don't look like most people who eat at that fancy place. I'm not most people, I said, handing him $100 bill. Keep the change. His eyes widened. That's too much. It's not, I replied. You reminded me there are still good people. That's worth more than money. He smiled softly. Ma'am, whatever happened tonight, don't regret it. You told your truth. That's rare, I nodded. Thank you. He drove away, taillights glowing red against the dark. I stood in front of my building, breathing in the quiet. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. Inside my apartment, everything looked the same: old couch, mismatched chairs, the familiar hum of silence. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just Evelyn, the quiet mother, anymore. I was Evelyn, the woman who no longer hid her worth. The next morning, sunlight spilled through my curtains like forgiveness. I brewed my usual coffee, black and strong, but it tasted different, lighter, freer. The weight I'd carried for years, the burden of silence, was gone. Then my phone rang. Ryan. Morning, Mom. His voice was tired but calm. We need to talk. Did something happen? He exhaled. A lot. After you left, things got ugly. I leaned against the counter. Tell me, he sighed. When you walked out, Dad, sorry, Charles, was on the phone arguing with the bank. Veronica just sat there staring at your card like it was a weapon. Simone, sorry, Julia, was crying. I told them everything. That they humiliated you, that I was ashamed. I stayed quiet. Veronica tried to defend herself, he continued, said they just wanted to protect Julia. That you misunderstood. I told her no, I understood perfectly, that you showed us who they really are. I smiled faintly. And what did she say? She lost it, said I was brainwashed by you. Franklin said I was ungrateful, that their help made me who I am. And then Julia, God, Mom, she was amazing. She told them they were wrong. She said she was ashamed too. My eyes softened. She really said that? Yeah. They screamed at her, called her ungrateful. Then she told them that their money doesn't give them permission to humiliate people. That what you did opened her eyes. I sat down, stunned. That took courage. Ryan's voice wavered. Mom, she said you were right, that she'd rather live in a small apartment with peace than a mansion with shame. Tears pricked my eyes. She wants to come see you, Ryan said. To apologize. Not yet, I said. Let her think. Real apologies grow in silence, not panic. He chuckled softly. You always know what to say. Years of practice. There was a pause. Mom, I just want to say thank you. I used to think success meant money. But last night, watching you, I realized success is peace. You taught me that without a lecture. Good, I said. That was the lesson. We hung up. I sipped my coffee, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, pure serenity. 3 days passed, then a knock on my door. When I opened it, Julia stood there, no heels, no designer dress, just jeans, sneakers, and a trembling smile. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. "Of course." She stepped inside and looked around my small apartment as if seeing it for the first time. No marble floors, no chandeliers, no art. Just calm. "I wanted to apologize," she began, "but not just to say sorry, to tell you why I let them treat you like that." I nodded. "Go on." She sat down, her voice trembling. "My parents grew up in poverty." Real poverty. No running water, no electricity. They clawed their way out of it. And ever since, they've been terrified of going back. That fear became arrogance. Money turned into armor. I listened silently. They taught me that worth equals wealth. That kindness makes you weak, and I believed them. Until that night. She looked up, tears in her eyes. "When you revealed yourself, I realized how small I'd become. I saw a woman with real strength, not the fake kind money buys. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't insult anyone. You just told the truth." And it broke every lie I was raised to believe. I reached for her hand. "Julia, trauma makes people build walls. But it's up to you not to live behind them." She nodded. "That's what I want. I want to learn from you, how to live simply, how to have dignity without needing to prove anything." I smiled softly. "That's something you learn over time. You start by asking yourself one question before every decision. Am I doing this for peace or for approval? If it's for approval, walk away." Julia wiped her tears. "Thank you. And your parents?" I asked. Her face fell. "They're furious. My mother won't speak to me. My father says I've betrayed them. He threatened to cut me out of his will." I chuckled. "Emotional blackmail, the language of people who only know control." She nodded. "I used to be scared of losing their support. But now I realize that kind of support isn't love, it's a leash." "Then you're finally free," I said. She exhaled shakily. "Marcus and I have decided to set boundaries. No more interference, no more judgment, no more money with strings. If they can't respect that, they'll have to live without us." "Good," I said. "You can love people and still protect your peace." Julia smiled for the first time that day. "You know what's strange? For the first time in my life, I feel like myself." "That's not strange," I said. "That's honesty. And it's the most expensive thing you'll ever own." She stood, wiping her eyes. "Thank you, Evelyn. For everything, for showing me what real class looks like." I hugged her. "Class isn't about what you wear, it's how you make others feel." When she left, I watched from the window as she walked down the street. No diamonds, no arrogance, just a woman reclaiming her own story. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Julia told me about her visit. "Thank you for giving her a chance. I love you more than words can say." I typed back, "I love you too, son, always." I set the phone down and looked around my small apartment. Everything I owned fit neatly within these walls. Simple furniture, warm light, quiet peace. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't modesty, it was freedom. I poured myself tea and sat by the window, watching the city breathe. Somewhere out there, Veronica and Charles were probably still fighting to restore their image, their cards, their pride. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had peace, and peace was the one currency they could never afford. The next morning, I took a walk in the park. Birds fluttered near a woman feeding crumbs to pigeons. She was old, smiling, wearing a worn coat. "Beautiful morning," she said. It is, I replied. She scattered crumbs and nodded toward the pigeons. Look at them. Some shiny, some scruffy, all eating from the same bread. None of them thinks they're better than the other. I smiled. That's a lovely thought. Not a thought, dear, she said. A truth. People could learn a lot from birds, how to share space without judgment. She stood, brushing crumbs from her lap. Remember, what you give others comes back, but what you take from others stays heavy forever. Then she walked away, slow but steady, leaving me with that sentence echoing like scripture. That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, I sat on my couch, tea in hand, reflecting. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who stayed quiet, who hid her success to make others comfortable. That woman was gone. I'd learned something priceless. Dignity doesn't need to announce itself, but when pushed, it speaks loud enough to shake the room. A knock came at my door, Ryan again. He stood there with Julia, hand in hand. Their faces were softer, calmer, full of something real. Mom, he said, we wanted to say this together. We're proud of you. And we're going to live the way you taught us, with peace, humility, and respect. Julia added, your truth changed everything for us. We won't waste that gift. I hugged them both. Then my work here is done. We laughed, and for the first time, it felt like family. No pretenses, no money walls, just people who finally understood each other. When they left, I stood by the window watching them disappear into the evening glow. My heart was full, not of pride, but of quiet joy. Because that night, months ago, I hadn't just exposed 2 arrogant people. I'd freed 3 souls, my son's, his wife's, and my own. And as the city lights flickered on, I whispered to the empty room, true wealth isn't in your bank account. It's in your peace of mind, your kindness, your truth. And that truth? It was mine now, unhidden, unbreakable, and worth more than every diamond on Veronica Harrington's neck.